And we would just sit, you and me, in your kitchen and say, click, now what do you think about this guy? Oh, he's a good guy. What does he do? He was a lawyer, he graduated law school 3 or 4 years ago. Even if that person's good, let me see what your neighbor says. What if that neighbor says 15 or 20 years ago? Well, that's a gap that I can now exploit. He said 3 years ago law school, he said 20 years ago. Maybe the guy's lying, you know, and you start to, so on micro scales, taking the insurgents' cloak of vulnerability or invisibility away from them, using that technique, it made relatively little progress in Armadi 05, but coincidentally, when we came back to the same place, we had all that info stored, so we knew who lived in what houses and stuff like that. The Marine Corps doesn't do this very well, the storing of information and the transfer of it from unit to unit to unit. We do.
So, just 3 quick things.
Sure.
Can you give me a date and time from Lieutenant Watson staying in someone's house?
The first time he did that must have been September 30th, 2005. Very, very early in the first tour.
And where was that?
Literally the house was one of these houses right here. We would always picket MSR Michigan, right here. India Company, that was in the north, and Lima Company, that was in the south. One of us would have responsibility every night for having a counter ID OP out, right? So we did this probably September 20th, 22nd, 24th, 26th, and 30th, and India did the other days. Well, finally Watson's like, I'm just going to go see what happens, and he gets this tremendous info cache.
And give me a date and location for Lieutenant Larson with his laptop.
Well, on December 7th, 2005, as we discussed in Armadi, we had that terrible IED strike that was right here. This is where the 5 Marines had the traumatic leg amputations and the 1 Marine was killed. We wanted to respond to that, but we didn't want to, raise houses. Again, we avoided an Abu Ghraib, which allowed us to win later. But man, that is tough to lead Marines through. So you need to do something to show them that you're addressing this in an aggressive, like masculine manner. Again, Marines, we're not the Air Force, right? Well, what we did was we did a sweep on December 22nd of all of these houses right here. And we would photograph every single person's face. We had this thing where we brought a whiteboard and they would write their name, and this became our census. So using those faces on December 22nd, the first 3 months of the next year, the last half of our deployment, we would go to all these other houses and show them the other faces and say, if we had been there longer, or if we had developed the tactic sooner, it would have. But I'll give you a quick example of what it led to, if you want.
Yes.